Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14, perhaps the biggest ever. Someone we've been trying to get in the house for about 6 years now. He finally said yes, he's here. Erick Sahler, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, our careers, my career, and our lives have been tied together for at least 33 years. Big admirer of your work, your talent, just so proud of you, so I wanted to get you on TV just to say how proud I am of you.
Thank you, man.
Like it matters of me being proud, but wow, what a great turnaround, what a great pivot you've made in your career, and what great success you've achieved. This is just amazing to me.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. You know, it has been a long time in the making, and part of that is we have known each other a very long time, and you know all my secrets.
No, I don't, no.
But I know all your secrets.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
But one thing you've maintained all along is that you didn't want to come on here until you had something to talk about, and now you do.
I suppose I do.
And you're not good at bragging, so I'm gonna extract this from you.
No, and I know your utter distaste for anniversary journalism, but it has been 10 years since I left the paper, since I started the business, and that means nothing to no one except for it's a personal milestone for me, because a lot of people, when I left the paper and said what I wanted to do, hey, I have this idea, I want to make silkscreen posters of the Eastern Shore, and people are going to buy them. You even rolled your eyes at me when I told you. And I got reactions from all over the world, from my foreign exchange daughter in Germany, like, just think this through before, one of my best friends, Jeff Dean, said, you have a good job, ride it until the wheels fall off. And I really did. I mean, I stayed at the paper as long as I could. And I got to the point where I just wasn't good at what I was doing. I had enjoyed my first 10 years at the paper. I was an illustrator, I was a graphic designer, I was a page designer, I was a marginal editor. But I loved the environment. I loved being there. It was exciting. And then, the last 10 years, it just became this grind of bureaucracy. And at the same time, the world was changing in that people got really mad. And I just remember every morning, walking into a ringing phone in that lonely office, and you pick up the phone and good morning, Erick Sahler, Daily Times, how may I help you? And people are like, what the hell is wrong with you people? It started, it was like once a month,
yeah,
and then it was once a week, and then it was several times a day.
Yeah.
And I'm not wired for that. You much better than me, but I just, the abuse, and honestly, I wasn't a journalist at heart. I didn't go to school for that. That wasn't what I wanted to be, and I was working in a room full of people that was their dream. They wanted to be journalists. It's all they ever wanted to do, and they were good at it. And I couldn't motivate them. I didn't feel like I had the bones to move them forward. I tried to be a friend more than anything. But yeah, so I knew 2009 that judging at my personal headspace and seeing where the industry was going, I was 40, 42, 43 at the time. I wasn't going to make it to retirement. And my God, how prophetic was that? I mean, who knew it would go down so quickly?
You were the canary in the coal mine. Absolutely.
Well, I think Jen Record was.
Yeah.
Jen saw it before the rest of us.
Yeah, she was our news editor, our designer.
Yeah, and she left about 2 years. And it was funny because the day that I told you what I wanted to do, that was still 2009 when I had the idea to move to Erick Sahler Serigraphs Co. And we were having lunch with Jennifer at the Green Turtle. I can remember it just as distinctly. And I said, so here my plans are. And Jen, you can step into my job. And within what? 2 weeks, she was gone.
She's gone.
I mean, that was the end of Jen. She was the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah. But I knew we were at a dynamic time, an important time in the industry, the news industry, and we needed people like you, your talent, to get to that next place. So if I was going to lose you, I was going to be in big trouble.
Right.
And I think the whole industry was in trouble without people like you involved in it.
It was, and it was killing me to see. It's so freaking hard to put out a daily newspaper under good conditions.
Yeah.
And we had worked so hard for so long, to make something that we were proud of. And we were getting awards. We were Paper of the Year 6 years running.
Yeah.
The paper was making money. I won't say we were held in high esteem, but I think there was at least a respect for what we did. And to see our corporate bosses have no clue as to where the industry was going, had no clue how to react to the internet, had no clue how to sell the paper. And we're two local guys. We're from the Eastern Shore. We're from Salisbury, from
Right.
Ocean City. They had no clue about the Eastern Shore. They had no clue about the weekly papers they owned, and how to manage them and what their role was. And so they started dismantling our product and making it more like every other product in the chain. And that was just so gut wrenching. I mean, it was just hard. It was hard to watch happen. The paper getting smaller, and we lost the style section. I mean, my God, the years I put into making that style section.
Right.
Cindy Robinson and Bruce Bennett and all those guys. We worked really hard to make that something that we were proud of. And then one day it was like, we're not gonna have a style section anymore. And so it just, you used to lie. People stopped, when things stop being fun, that's when people go looking for something else. And,
Right.
And that's what it got to for me. It was not fun anymore.
Yeah, the world definitely changed around us, and people were not as happy with what we were putting out. But our content, I thought, was better than ever. And what I do now, I go back and I do the history column for
Yeah.
my little paper, and I look at the Daily Times, and I see different years, and you can tell when things are going well and when things are not. You can tell when reporters are on vacation from looking at clips. But there was a period there from about 2005 to 2009 where we were doing some really amazing work, and I'm so proud of that when I look back.
It was. The paper was good. And even before it was good, it was readable. And, the rare times I see the paper now, I go to the vet, and there's 3 of them laying there, and I'm done.
Right.
It's like a Krispy Kreme donut. It's just gone in an instant. And this really hit me, man. I was, about a year ago, I was doing the 25th anniversary of the Shorebirds coming to Delmarva.
Right.
Woo! What a season, right? It's party time. And so I had this photograph of Javier Vasquez when he was an Expo. So he had gone on and made it to the show. So I put him back in his Shorebirds uniform, and I younged his face down, and then I wanted to do a little writing about it for the release, and I released it on opening day, or what was going to be opening day, which was April something of last year. And to make sure I got my facts right, I went back I went to the library first. There's no microfilm anymore. So you turned me on to the newspapers online, the history, the archive, whatever it is, and I went back and I read the paper, and I really was just going to read the story about the Shorebirds opening, and I remember distinctly being in the newsroom that day, and the whole staff went out to the stadium on opening day. It was April 17th, 1996, and everybody went out to work. So in the paper there was Bryce Stump stories.
Yeah.
In the paper the next day. All the sports guys, the feature writers, everybody had a byline, something to do with the baseball.
It was team coverage for a day. It was awesome.
It was incredible, yeah. And then I just kept going through the paper. And I was there 2 hours. I read every word of the paper, and I felt so informed about my community, and I mean, just the lack of court briefs nowadays. Just what happened yesterday in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Or the 911 report, the ambulance calls and where the fire trucks went. And, I'm home every day now, and I hear Hebron, I hear Fruitland, I hear Allen, I hear Salisbury. I hear the sirens, and I'm like, I'll never know.
Never know.
I'll never know where they went. The lunch menus.
That's right. We used to run lunch menus in the paper.
Yeah,
And people would clip them and put them on the refrigerator so they knew what the kids were going to have.
The lotteries.
Yeah.
What was the lottery numbers from last? I mean, you have no idea.
Right.
And I know you can go find all that stuff online
Well,
now.
you used to sit there on deadline and wait till 11:15 for the number
just
to come in.
get the numbers in so you could finish page 2 and put the paper to, put the paper to bed.
That was devotion to readers.
Yeah. So yeah, it was an amazing product, and I'm not just crying about the Daily Times, because every small town community had a paper doing exactly what we were doing, and these these dedicated people, and this massive process to collect all of this within 12 hours, starting with blank pages every day, and then building the thing, producing it, printing it, and then delivering it.
To every one of your customers within 24 hours in every weather condition, didn't matter. There's no business like it in the world.
No, there really isn't.
Yeah.
And then that was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun, and I loved that. Like I said, for the first 10 years, I loved going in that newsroom every day.
Yeah, just that feeling of driving in the morning and realizing there's 40 pages to fill.
Wednesdays.
What are we going to put in there?
Yeah. Because Sundays you worked on for like 3 or 4 days. But
Yeah.
that Wednesday paper, oh my God, you had one day to fill it, and yeah. But I can remember you telling staffers, I mean, anyone who would ask you, if there's something better out there for you, you owe it to yourself to go pursue it.
Right. So I don't want to forget the real reason we have you on here today is talk about your latest recognition.
Yeah, so, boy, what a couple months it's been. Chesapeake Bay Magazine, the cover, my artwork is on the cover of Chesapeake Bay Magazine.
How did that happen?
You know, I have a couple guardian angels, and one of them is Carrie Samus. Carrie,
Isn't she fun?
Carrie's so awesome. She is so awesome. She was my neighbor when we lived in Del Mar.
Okay.
We never even spoke. I'd see her over there, we'd wave. You know, she's some girl. I was just some guy.
Yeah.
I was living with Tracy, and anyway, so Carrie contacted me around the holidays, before Christmas maybe, and said, I have this friend, Kate Livy. I was like, yeah, I've seen Kate on Facebook. She's secretly been stalking you on Facebook. Would you be interested in doing a story? Okay. Well, she works for Chesapeake Bay Magazine. I was like, you know, really? I mean, so I spoke to Kate right after New Year's, nice interview, and she said that the magazine would be contacting me about artwork to go with the story at some point. So she said it was headed for the March edition. That was the plan. And I kind of forgot about it for a while, and then I realized it was the end of January, and you know, knowing how production's done pretty far in advance to get a product out on, especially a magazine. A March magazine usually comes out middle of February, sort of thing. So it got to be early February, and I hadn't heard from them. So I contacted Kate, and she was like, "Yep, they're gonna talk to you next week." So I sent I think about a dozen images to them, and they thanked me, and I thought that was about the end of it. And then Jill, boy, I can't remember her last name, but the creative director contacted me and said, we think this is going to be our cover story. So, at the time, Kate didn't know, I didn't know, the magazine didn't even know. But when it came time to figure out what was the cover story for the March issue, they asked, could they use a piece of artwork? So I let Kate know, and she was utterly flabbergasted. First of all, it was for her first cover story in the magazine. And she also told me that there has not been a piece of artwork. It's been photographs on the cover. I mean, Chesapeake Bay Magazine is always, the sailboat on the cover, or the Chesapeake Bay Retriever, or the lighthouse, or whatever. She said there's not been a piece of artwork on the cover since 2017, when they featured John Barber, who is, the patriarch of Chesapeake Bay art. His paintings, reproductions of his paintings hang. Well, we used to have them in the Daily Times conference room.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful oil paintings and watercolor paintings. And so that's, I mean, just an absolute honor for me to be on the cover. And it went out last week, about March 5th, to subscribers. So I started getting Facebook messages that weekend or early this week. People had seen it. It's not in stores yet. Tracy's checking. She went to Annapolis yesterday, and it's not even in the stores in Annapolis. But it's just a matter of time before it hits around here.
Well, that's going to be incredible, because the exposure of something like that, I mean, it's seen by real people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Real people. And what scares me is I don't have any Western Shore art.
Right.
I did Memorial Stadium because I wanted it for me. I wanted to remember that sixth grade safety patrol field trip. When we went to Memorial Stadium,
right.
And you walk out and you see that grass and you see those townhouses across the.
So green.
Oh my gosh! And to think that people live there, because you didn't really see that on WJZ when you watched the games when you were a kid. You just see inside the stadium, but to see those townhouses in the outfield, behind the outfield wall, and to think that was their neighborhood. They lived at Memorial Stadium, and I wanted to do that for me. But that's the only, I've not done Annapolis. I've really shied away from doing anything that's traditional. I did do some log canoes because Keith Whitelock and I went out and shot them the last race of the season in 2018. And it was just a phenomenal day. And but really, I haven't done a lot of work boats. I don't do the geese, and I don't do the whole. There's other people that do it better than me, so I've kind of left that. So
and all that stuff's kind of trite. I mean, Annapolis has been done so many times. I don't know of a new way to do it.
That's another thing because on the top of my website it says Eastern Shore art for the rest of us,
Right.
and that's sort of like not in a judgmental way, but to say I'm going to try to take a different angle on this, or try to tell a different story than what you've heard about this before, or show you something different. I've done 2 Chesapeake Bay lighthouses. I did Cambridge and I did Hooper Strait, and I cut them both in half because everybody else puts it right in the center. It's just like classical design. So I try to get something to make it different, and I don't know that I can do Annapolis different.
Yeah.
And Annapolis is beautiful, and and it's colorful, and it lends itself to that kind of pop art that I do. But I just don't want to do the same old thing that people have already seen.
It's just been done.
Yeah.
It's been done so much. You had a lighthouse photo that we talked about just last week, which amazed me. Lighthouse, the lightship photo from from Delaware, and it was one of those classic things where, and we talked about this, where you had the ship angled in a certain way, and it wasn't the way you always see the photos of the ship. And it bothered me at first because I was like, why didn't he angle it so you could read the side of it and stuff like that? And then I realized the genius of what you were doing, and that you incorporated the bow more, because I believe the bow is always the best feature on any boat. And you had to sort of like look to see the name, but you knew the name anyway. You didn't really have to look to see what the name was, because you knew what the name was, and it was just done so amazingly that it made me look at it for an extra 4 or 5 minutes more than I would have normally. You know what I mean?
That's the standard shot of a lightship is from the side, like you would see it out on the water if it was working, with these big letters, and that's what attracts you to it. Because if the thing was painted black, you wouldn't give it a second look. But there it is. It's red. It's got these big white letters on it. But anybody in Lewis who's seen that boat knows. What's the name on the boat? People, it's Overfalls. Everybody knows it. They don't even know what Overfalls is. We don't even have falls around here.
Right.
But for some reason, that's the boat. Well, that's actually not the boat. That's not the real boat that sat at the mouth of Delaware Bay. But that's what it was called. It was painted to resemble that boat. But I was like, I don't need to show that because you already know that. And again, going back to the newspaper days, I mean, one of the rules, Tim Harrow, the newspaper designer's handbook, crop tight, then crop again. And so, you go close, and then, because, one of the things that I used to preach in a mugshot, you don't need the very top of someone's head, because it's going to do this. It's going to finish, right? So you can get a little closer on the face and reveal them with a little more detail, because a mugshot's little.
Right.
But yeah, crop tight and crop again, and that's it's just all throughout my artwork.
We both have great sentimental feelings about my hometown, Ocean City, and Ironshire, and Salisbury. You, Quantico, even Del Mar to a degree, and Salisbury. What is it about Salisbury?
Man, if we could put that in find some. I can tell you this. Since 2009, and only because I was at the paper and we started having to take furloughs, because before that you could never take 2 weeks off at a time.
Right.
And all of a sudden we had to take, gobs of vacation and jam it together. And so we went on a road trip. Tracy and I and the 2 girls, Allison was 9, Molly was 7, and we drove to Colorado. And it was fun. And the next week we did it again, and lo and behold, 6 years down the road, we had driven to all of the lower 48 states. I have seen some incredible things. Beautiful scenes, beautiful communities. Nothing feels like home like this place does. And maybe if you lived in Evergreen, Colorado, you would feel the same way about Evergreen, I don't know. Or if you lived in the coast of Maine or, wherever. But I know that here, wherever you're from, be it Deal Island or Crisfield or Cambridge, you think your place is better than everywhere else. And you're proud of it. And that's when I made my first print of downtown Salisbury, it's called My Hometown Series. And people are like, oh, that's because you live here. Well, the lightship Overfalls, it says My Hometown, because those people in Lewis feel the same way about Lewis. So, I can't put my finger on what it is about Salisbury. I can tell you that, and Cam Cart said this. Cam Cart was the quarterback for Bennett for the first 2 state championship games. And Cam said growing up at Bennett in the early 80s was the best of everything America had to offer. And it was. We didn't live with any fears. We roamed all over this community. And I can remember going to City Park at 11 o'clock at night, just to walk over to the fountain and not having any. Would I want my daughter to do that now? So, whatever it is, it's a sentimentality for Salisbury and what I grew up with, and something else too. And this hit me when I went away to college. I went to UMBC in Baltimore, and I had always been around a community that was supportive. My family's from Shad Point. I would spend weekends with my grandparents, and we would do choring. First thing Saturday morning, there was choring to be done. And then by mid-afternoon, Pop would say, come on, let's get in the truck, we'll go ride around the Horn. To him, that was riding out to Allen and Cooper Road and back to Shad Point. And we would just ride slow and look at the farms and see what crops were coming up in the fields. And we'd stop in and visit. There was different families he knew, and stop in, and you just ride up the driveway unannounced. And people were always working on stuff, tinkering with a tractor, or getting a seeder ready, or whatever needed to be done, putting up a barn. And we'd stop and we'd help. And the next weekend we'd do the same thing with someone else. And that's just how I grew up. And my family was strong that way. I had an uncle who was good mechanically. My dad was good with carpentry, and my grandfather was a plumber. So anything that ever needed fixed, there was somebody in the family who you went to, and they helped you with it. And when I went to UMBC, that was the first time in my life, even the football team at Bennett, I mean, we all pulled together,
Yeah.
I was the manager. I wasn't even a player, I was the manager, but I gave it everything I had, and I still feel like I'm the manager of that team, and I'm still in contact. Last night I was still emailing with those guys, and I go to college, and I'm in a dorm, and it was just everyone was competing with one another. And that's when it hit me. I was like, this is not like home. This is, things are different elsewhere. And maybe it was just a rural urban thing. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's something else about that Salisbury, that we've always seemed to help each other out. We've never fought, and I mean, I know politically there's certain things, but we've always seemed to come together as a community. And in recent years, I mean, well, not even recent anymore, but like Ben's Red Swings, that to me is that's just one of the most shining examples of what a community can do when it comes together. Yeah, it still is. Yeah, it still is.
Your poster of Salisbury, which I love so much, and I think it reflects your talent and what is really unique about you. You have all the different businesses and the little iconic things that make Salisbury special, some of the celebrities that are from here. Mm-hmm. So it's a bunch of different blocks. But it's the kind of thing that only you could have created. There's no one in this community that could have created anything like that knows the history of the town and has a sentimental attachment to all these things that are featured, that knows the things that are important. And to me, I think when it came out, it was at a point where I was kind of maybe frustrated with my own little newspaper, like, am I making a difference? Am I doing anything? And you included me in there, and I skipped around for like a month because, hey, I'm like part of Salisbury's history
you were big
now.
Too. Yeah, you were pretty big.
Exactly.
Yeah.
According to Erick Sahler, I've made it somehow. So I just think that's so amazing that there's only you to do this. In a lot of ways, there's only me to do a lot of the things that I do with my paper. There's only Bryce Stump to do what he does.
Yeah.
And to be around this incredible talent pool is just so fortunate for me. But I just think that's so reflective of you and who you are. It amazes the heck out of me.
Thank you, man. I was able to do that with Salisbury, and that is, I wrote a piece when I released that print, and it's about 80 different logos, and some stuff didn't have logos, so I had to just invent one.
Right.
And it was really, I did that about a year ago. So it was the start of the pandemic, and my shops had closed. So it was just really something to keep me busy, and it was based on a series of posters done by a guy named Aaron Draplin, who went around and did the big cities of this country, and he did a lot of the states. So we have one from Maryland. Allison has one that's Philadelphia. My sister has one that's Georgia, because she went to SCAD. So it was his idea. And I thought, I'm going to do this for Salisbury, and I'm just going to do my Salisbury. This is the stuff that's important to me. So, Tracy's never been to Johnny's and Sammy's. She's like, she's heard of it. She's heard how great it was. I don't even know if it was great. In hindsight,
no, it wasn't.
Probably it was okay.
Yeah.
And it was probably Salisbury good, but not,
Yeah.
So I was able to do Salisbury. I did Ocean City, and my Ocean City one is basically Ocean City of 1985.
Right.
I just released Oxford just about a month ago. No idea, so I had to really lean on my Oxford friends to tell me what needed to be included, what was important.
The other thing I have framed, and it's in front of my desk, I look at it all day when I'm at work, is your Salisbury Metro map. So being a transportation guy, bus guy,
Right.
subway guy, with all the different spots in Salisbury, as if we had this giant subway system. And it's just amazing, so I want to recommend that as well. It's just amazing.
Yeah, that was just, I had read about a year and a half ago or so, there was an exhibit in New York of subway maps. And I've always, you get on the Metro in Washington. For me, a graphic guy, I would just sit and just stare. I just loved staring at that thing. It was so well done. It was so simple. And in, 5 colored lines and 60 dots and some type, you understood the whole city metro system.
Yeah.
And New York's is way more complex than that. But anyway, so I read about this and it got my, just got the wheel spinning. I was like, do one for Salisbury. So the dumps on there,
yeah.
And Eden, it's just, it's silly. So yeah, I did that, and there was like 6 people who bought it. In part because you published it in the paper as soon as I released it.
And my daughter was one.
Okay, yeah, and people just clipped out from the Salisbury Independent and put it on the refrigerator.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
But I did one in Chincoteague. Well, Chincoteague is a huge Washington crowd, so that thing just sells like hotcakes down there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You've got some upcoming shows. Give me a plug for that.
Yeah, so Ann Coates, who was the owner of Bishop Stock in Snow Hill, probably the best art gallery on the Lower Eastern Shore. No, not probably, definitely the best art gallery.
I go down there to get my hair cut, and I stop and look in the window there all the time, and I'm amazed. They're always closed, but I'm always amazed.
Right now, pandemic's Thursday to Sunday.
That's good. That's true. But go ahead.
Yeah, so Ann is just a huge supporter of the arts and has been for a long, long time. And she was the first person to carry my work, and it's been 10 years, and so we're going to do a solo exhibit in April of my recent works from 2021, so going back 2020, 2019, 2021. It's about 24 pieces, including everything from the pandemic. And then also in July, we're going to do a month-long solo retrospective at the, let me get it right, Dorchester Center for the Arts, which is in downtown Cambridge. So that's going to be more of my midshore work, Cambridge, Oxford, St. Michael's, and then we're going to also run back the clock and do my T-shirt designs. I started working for Chesapeake Screen Printing back in the 80s, 1983. I was a 16-year-old at Bennett, and I was designing T-shirts. So there's some of those designs that will feature, and then some of my newspaper work, the old weekend covers that I used to do on deadline every week for about 5 years, hand drawing those and hand cutting them, and then some of my editorial cartoons, which we're going to take the lock off the archives of those things and find maybe a handful that are appropriate. And
still taking calls for some of
yeah,
those.
still taking the Tangier Island people were yeah.
Thanks for all your contributions to the community. Thanks for everything you've done in my life, and the community, everyone appreciates you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I
so
appreciate that.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.